3, 2, 1, and we are live. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Trammell. I'm the creator, developer, and head coach of the Author Launchpad. And I'm going live, which means when you go live, sometimes you do it wherever you're at, using whatever tools and whatever resources you have. And today I am at a conference, a one-day training summit with Brendon Burchard. Some of you might know who Brendon Burchard is. He is known as the world's leading high-performance coach. He's right there next to Tony Robbins, next to the Grant Cardones, next to the Ed Milet's. He's part of that extraordinary group of individuals that's out there to make a difference in the world. And so when I went looking for a private space, when there's 700 people in an auditorium, I said, okay, best thing to do when you're out in the world and you need Wi-Fi as quick as possible, find a Starbucks. So I'm in front of the Starbucks today, and hopefully you're going to hear me just fine. I have an extraordinary guest that I'm going to bring on in just a few moments. That's Marilyn McLeod. I cannot wait to introduce you to her. I know many of you are here to hear Marilyn, but the first thing that I always ask people to do is to go to your notifications. Make sure that you are live wherever you said you're supposed to be live. And there it is. I see myself live. So check, that's the first location. The next location that I go to make sure everything is working and that all my guests who I wanted to be able to access the show today, I'm going to go to the Author Launchpad. It is a curated Facebook community that I have created to make sure that nonfiction authors, those self-development, those professional development, the make a difference authors have their own curated location to be able to go live in. One more time, there it is. So all's well, this is fantastic. I'm very excited that the tech gods and are all working in my favor. Weather's working in my favor. I know half my face is dark, but that's just part of it. So who am I and why today for you? Well, more importantly, let's start about why today for you. I created the How to Market and Monetize Your Book in 90 Days event. One, because I saw what my guest, who's going to be on in just a few moments, what she had done over the past 2 months, creating an extraordinary workshop series. And I saw all these incredible individuals sharing on her platform. And I like to do live launches as well. I like to bring myself live. I like to have guests come on. But most importantly, the thing that I was hearing after I returned back from the Kauai Writer Conference, had a beautiful opportunity to meet guests there, is the gap in marketing. The biggest thing that I hear once an author has their work ready to bring to the world is this gap in marketing. Now, most of you might think it's just marketing, but I'm going to assert there's also a gap in mindset. And if you've been with me these past 5 days, you'll know that I talked about that it's not just marketing. It's not just, hey, get my book out there for me. Get my work out to the world. It really is you. There is no one else, absolutely no one else that is going to be more passionate, more committed, more conviction about your book living and existing in the lives of others than you. There might be others who have a skill set that they're able to market better than you. There might be others that have a larger following that they might be able to be great joint venture partners and help you get distribution that way. There might be distributors that have deeper inroads and a wider network to get your book out there. But they are not more committed and they are not more passionate than you can ever be with the hustle, with the phone calls, with the emails, with going live that is going to make a difference for you. And so especially when it comes to you representing you, my biggest invitation is trust yourself, trust your authority, trust your life work, trust your expertise, trust the experience, trust the engagement that you're going to have when you show up to make a difference in the lives of others. The audience that is intended for you, the audience that's waiting for your message, the way you've packaged it, the way you market it, the way that you offer and sell it, they're waiting for you. So part of my 5 days is that you don't wait for the gatekeepers anymore. And that's one of the things that Marilyn and I are going to talk about is oftentimes people wait for agents. They wait for publishers. They wait on someone else's timeline. As best as I've seen, and maybe someone else can tell me otherwise, when it's time for you to go, it is time for you to go. You don't go on someone else's timeline, you go on your timeline. When that number gets called, it is your number that gets called. They don't go and they ask someone else, hey, am I done? No, it's your number. Now, I know that's a macro way of looking at things, but in the micro moments of life, it's you and it's you and it's you. So if you can't tell, I'm also a high performance coach. It's why I love being here with Brendan Burchard. And I also want to get to, if you did not get your workbook, that was a louder truck right there. If you did not get your workbook, if you were to go to the authorlaunchpad.com, that is where the workbook is available for you. If not, you could post in the comments below. We're able to get you your workbook there. I have to acknowledge the number of fantastic guests that we have had during this experience. The first Monday, it was myself talking about the opportunity that you, the nonfiction author, have after the world of publishing. On Tuesday, I had Catherine Dove, who's one of my favorite mentors. She works with coaches, consultants, helps them create their high ticket courses from their books, helps that corporate escapee create their high ticket courses from their books. On Wednesday, I had Carrie Bayer, outstanding gentleman who does great marketing, who learned on his own to take his knowledge out to the world. Also has his own publishing house called Heaven on Earth Publishing. Yesterday, if you were here, Thursday, I had Melissa Ebken on, and she talked about the difference that either having your own podcast or making podcasts part of your 2024 strategy so that people know about your book. Because you might be thinking, Chris, what am I going to do? What am I going to write in here? My book's not even done yet. Post about the book that you are writing. If you write a quote and it gives you goosebumps, capture it, put it next to your picture, and post about that. If your book is right about to be published, hopefully you've got your branding done, or the cover of your book is done. Maybe you're trying to decide which cover am I going to use. Post that up. Ask people, hey, I'm about to launch my book. Do you like cover A or do you like cover B? Which one do you think would make a difference for me? Those are the types of things that you're able to do, including the podcast, which is the easiest one. You call someone up. Hi, I would like to be on your podcast. You email them. I love your podcast. How could I be a guest on your show? How would you like to be a guest on my show? This is the theme of the work I do. I see that we work really well together. That's what I did with Marilyn. She's extraordinary. I've watched her for years on LinkedIn. I've watched her grow the nonfiction writing community. And I was lucky enough to know somebody who was going to be on her series. And I reached out to her and I said, I love the work that you do. Could I possibly be able to feature you for the difference that you make for other people? And she's like, yeah, sure, I'd like to. So part of you being out there with your work is you be out there with your work. You be the momentum behind the tip of the arrow. Today, as we go ahead and get ready to bring on Marilyn, I cannot recommend to you enough that you go ahead and find this workbook. If you need any help filling it out, if you need any help being able to follow up, I have a replay page. I'll post the replay page below this live stream so you can go back and look at the days that would make the most difference to you. And if if you still find yourself a little bit challenged by what it is that you are looking for and what you best can do for your personality type, for your book type, maybe you're in a swirl about, Chris, who's my audience? How do I create a signature program? How do I create a workshop? Well, those are the things we're going to talk about today with Marilyn. So um, I have filled up the airspace enough now. Again, I'm Chris Trammell, creator, developer of the Author Launchpad, but I really, really just, I can't say enough about the guest I'm about to introduce right now. Marilyn McLeod is known for her ghostwriting. She's an extraordinary author coach. She has worked with some of the preeminence in the field of professional literature, from Marshall Goldsmith and the staff and faculty at UCLA to a number of others. So before I take all of her red carpet runway, and there's many things I know that I didn't mention, I'm going to go ahead and bring Marilyn on right now.
Hey, Chris.
And there we go. Wonderful. Marilyn, welcome to the Author Launchpad. I cannot thank you enough for being a yes. Your generosity, not only to me, but to all the other authors and difference makers in the author journey that I have seen you so generously create the container for these last 2 months. If they did not pour over with gratitude, I just want to tell you thank you for the difference that you made for myself and everybody else.
Well, thank you. Yes, it was a labor of love to do it. And I did love it. And I met so many wonderful people, including you. You were attending one of the sessions, and I was impressed with your comments. And so I'd like you to speak next year. I just made the page live for next fall. It's a few days away, but we can plan ahead, and I'd love to have you as a speaker. And in addition, I know I asked for a copy of this recording for myself, which I'd like to promote, but I didn't know what you were doing with your current series here. And let's talk about how we can promote that whole thing, because that's my deal. I mean,
Yes.
I really like supporting other people who are providing quality content, quality help to
Yes.
authors, and you sure are doing that. And you're connected to other people who are doing that. So gold mine for me.
All right. Well, I have got some questions here, and I'm absolutely going to include that. Let me go to my Maryland page that I'm opening up right now. And before we jump into those questions, Marilyn, um, so my background, I think I shared it with you, is um, I love books. I really started off with, though, uh, I started off before Sir Thomas Malory with the Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I
Oh
love
yeah, I love
dinosaur
that.
books, right?
Yeah.
So I used to love dinosaur books. I got in trouble a few too many times by the nuns asking them, "Sister, where are the dinosaurs at?" And every time this story would come up, and they said, "Stop reading dinosaur books." So I found King Arthur. When I found King Arthur, I found the hero's journey. I found this arc, this narrative about who we are as a collective. We're individuals connected in this energetic sphere, like Carl Jung would say, the collective unconscious, all looking to have our podium moments, all looking to be our heroes or our heroines to our journey. And one of the things I did when I was the curriculum writer and the course creator for the Los Angeles Zoo High School, when I used to take science books, extract the knowledge from those books, and turn it into courses, I would often tell my students, let's look at their lives first. Let's look at what's going on in the lives of those theorists, those authors, those great scientists, so that you understand why they created what they created. And I didn't know that when the pandemic hit, that I was going to be able to take those years of looking for expertise from other authors, my years of being a track and field coach, take my years of being an Ironman, working with high performance coaches, bring it all together to create a program that I say releases the intention from the book. It releases the passion from the book. It releases the author from being an author writer to being an author difference maker. That's my promise. So I would be happy to go wherever you needed me to go to be able to elevate your programs. But now I want to turn it to you because you've seen many individuals on their journeys. So
That's what I
please.
like. That's what I like. I'm the coach. I mean, I'm a techie in a lot of ways too, but my sweet spot is coaching and helping people on their journey. I just love that part.
Mm. Well, let's talk about your journey. What before Marshall Goldsmith? What were you doing with books? Because I want to hear where the dam broke and Marilyn hit her stride. But I think people forget that there's no overnight successes. We see the TikTok people and we see the Instagrammers, and it make $100,000, make 50,000 a day. It doesn't happen like that. So where were you early in the career heading towards that moment when it's like, oh, this is what's available for me?
Well, I've been a coach for a long time, and I've always been interested in writing. So that was kind of just a personal thing. And I met Marshall Goldsmith at a coaches conference. He was the speaker, and at the very beginning of the event, he does this thing where you talk to each other and you get each other's ideas about what your problem is. So I paired up with him. He just was floating around the room, and I told him what I did. And at that point, it was early in the techie days, in the .com days, and I said I help people with their websites. And he said, I need somebody to help me with my website. So we got together, and I got Saturday mornings with him. It was just great. Yeah. And so one thing led to another, and I had a lot of skills beyond websites. And so one day he needed somebody to help him write an article he didn't have time to write. And so he asked me if I'd draft one for him. So I did. And it was so much fun because I drafted the article about thought leadership and gave it to him. And he added his stuff, and it was so much fun to have Marshall polishing my work. It was just like total fun. And then we gave it to the editor of the magazine, who is oh, I can't believe I forgot his name. Ken
Well,
Shelton. Good grief. Ken Shelton
okay.
was the ghostwriter for 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He
Mm.
knew something about books, and he had this magazine. So he then took what Marshall and I had written and just was a wordsmith with, and I've just never had so much fun. I guess I must be geeky about writing, but that's and then Ken said, I like what you wrote. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And being from Minnesota, I was coy and just said, well, and then I thought, you idiot, Marilyn, just say yes. He said he'd coach me as I wrote my first book, and that was the dam breaking. And so I didn't want to bother him too much. I just asked him a few things. He told me things like, okay, first thing, put together your book cover because you're birthing this thing, and
Right.
you want to see where it's going. And he helped me here and there. He helped me. He was more of a developmental editor, so I would send him stuff, and he would kind of move them around and say, "You need more here," and "Where is this going?" and that kind of thing. But he was great, and then I was ready to publish with him just as the economy turned down in 2009, 2008, 2009, and he said, "I can't publish your book." And I had other friends saying, well, I'll go to my publisher and ask. And I thought, you know what? I think I'd rather self-publish because then I own the intellectual property. I don't have to go to anybody else to get permission to use my work. I can repurpose it any way I want, and I can make all the choices. So I did that, and I went to look for a book on how to self-publish, and there weren't any. So this was back in the 2009. So
Wow.
I did my research, and then I put together all my research in a book and called it Secrets of Self-Publishing. It went #9 on Amazon. It may have gone higher than that, but I didn't look. I was on a Saturday morning with Marshall Goldsmith, and I told him about my book, and he said, well, let's go look at Amazon. And he showed me how to look for how it ranked. And so he said, well, it's #9. I said, well, let me take a screenshot right now. So that was fun. So that's where the dam broke. And then I didn't know how to promote the book. So I started studying social media, which I never wanted to get involved with, because it's like it just never stops changing and you have to keep up with it. And I did not want to have to be saddled with that, but I didn't see an alternative. And it's only gotten worse over the years. But anyway, so I studied the social media gurus at the time, and I took notes and wrote a couple more books. And that's how by that time, actually, I was so exhausted that I didn't do any more promotion about my books, except I did good keyword research, and I wrote my title, subtitle, and descriptions with keywords research in mind. And that's basically how I sold any books. I could have sold a lot more if I'd done more marketing, but that was way back then, back in
Wow.
the dinosaur days, by the way. And, yeah,
Keyword research.
yeah,
Yeah.
keyword research, and then I used that on my Amazon descriptions and stuff. And I
So
didn't
good.
I didn't, I mean, you don't want to overdo it, because then the bots just kind of ignore it. But if you use keywords and key phrases in context, and they are relevant to your topic and the book, that means a lot, because people are searching on keywords and then they find your book.
So perfect. Okay, so for those of you that are tracking inside of the workbook, because you have it out, you'll find if you go to the day 5 session page, that page is dedicated to the ahas that you're going to get from Marilyn. And I want you to write some of those things down right now, whatever aha. One of the things that I share with my clients, Marilyn, is when you have an aha, it is paramount that you write it down as the action that we must take and by when. You can't just have goosebump moments. Like, you could feel the goosebumps of a good moment, but when someone else says something to you and you're like, oh, that's it, write it down. Figure out what is the action of that aha, and by when am I going to take action on it and make it real. And that's what I heard in your share right now is you saw a problem in the marketplace. There's no book on self-publishing. Well, even before that, the problem was, for you, you wanted to retain the rights on your book. So let's back up to that space right there, because I know there's two camps. One that says, oh no, you have to go the route of traditional publishing, because if you self-publish and it doesn't sell well, no one's ever going to look at you, and you might as well jump off a cliff and be done with your journey. And then you have those who have self-published, done well, and then maybe later on, because they've created the proof of concept, proof of authority, they might or might not get picked up based on their choice. So how have you worked with others to navigate, should I get a big publishing house or just trust that who I am, the smarts I know, the marketing team I have, and my own elbow grease is what's going to make the difference?
Well, I think it's first important to figure out why you're writing the darn book in the first place. It takes an awful lot of effort. And what's your purpose? If it's credibility, who's your audience? If your audience is college professors, then it makes more sense to be very academic and very proper and go through getting a traditional publisher and going through that whole years long process. And if you're like me, I'm a coach. I care about my clients. And basically, when I write a book, I'm thinking about, what do my clients need? And how can I put that into a book where it's a good reference book for them? If they're new to me, it'll take them through my thinking process of how I'm going to coach them and give them some some things to think about, and some reference material while they're working with me. And then it becomes a great introduction to me. It's, as Ken Shelton told me, it's your perfect business card. So you hand somebody your business card and they say thank you and they put it in their pocket. You hand them a book and they go, you wrote this and this is for me and I can keep it. I mean, it's a whole different experience, and it's not that expensive really to do when you think about marketing materials. So if I'm writing a book, I care more about the ideas I'm conveying and how I'm conveying them to the reader than I do about, is this proper, APA style or whatever it is. I don't care about style, basically. I care about how the message gets across to my people. And in that case, self-publishing is perfect for me.
I have a little rebel in me, Marilyn, and I hear a hint of proactive rebel in you. Has anybody else ever spotted that or heard that? Do you know that already? Like,
I can be a little scrappy. It's true.
but what you said is valid. It's going back again. I might have shared at the Kauai Writers Conference. I just remember watching so many of the authors wait. It's like that scene in Gladiator. They're waiting for the emperor to say, yes, you got my thumbs up, or no, it's not worth it. And when I heard those types of conversations, I was watching faces now. I was watching the faces around me, and I would just see the shoulders and the face go back, going, I'm never going to get my book out there. It's never going to be picked up. No one's going to want to read my work.
Well, in a way, who cares? Really? I mean, so what's the point of the book? Sometimes it's just me expressing myself. My first book was like that. My audience that I had in mind actually was myself, people like me, because I had gotten hurt very badly. And I found that as a coach, I couldn't find a coach that could do for me what I had been doing for my clients for years. And I thought, well, that's disappointing, and also tells me more about the quality I had. I should have charged for, right? And so my book, I didn't really want to be open about what I just been through. That was a terrible experience, and I didn't want to relive it. I didn't want to share it. I just wanted to come up with something that was a reference book that would have helped me. So I just said, basically, I said, God, if I can ever get through this, I'll write a book that will be a reference for somebody like me. And in case this ever happens again, I'll have a reference book. So basically, it really was for me. And I didn't try to promote it, actually. It was just, when I finished the book, it was very interesting. It was a cathartic experience. And you write your book and you have your outline or whatever you're doing, and you write and you write and you write and you write and you edit and you say, okay, it should be done by now, but then you go through it and it just seems like it takes almost as long just to do the finishing up, right? And so finally one day I went, wow, I'm done. How did that happen? And it was a cathartic experience because I had now created something that was my legacy. So it represented my life up to that point, and whatever I did from now on was like, okay, it's a bonus, basically. And I used to think I couldn't write a book because I didn't have all of the experience I would have in life. I wasn't quite the expert yet. Well, I'm still not the expert, but I do have some experience to share. And so I just think that's really valid. Wherever you are, there's a reader that will be there, and you'll be a few steps ahead of them. And you know what? If you make some dumb mistakes in your first book and you realize later on that you could have done better, well, talk about that in your next book. So I'm pretty relaxed about this whole thing, and I think that having a book, it's really great in terms of credibility, and it you're an author. You're an author. It kind of changes your status. Yeah. So you're muted, Chris. I don't know if you know that.
There we go. Yes, I had a car go by, and that's so absolutely perfect, Marilyn. And as you're speaking right now, for those of us that have been on Pirates of the Caribbean, there's a scene inside of that Disney ride where the jailers, the pirates who are behind the the gate, the steel bars. They're waiting. They're trying to get the dog over with the key. And as you're talking, I hear you handing the key over to all these authors who are waiting for someone to give them the key to let me out of
And
my
who,
self-inducedness.
oh, it's just so frustrating to even hear that because um, how do you know that whoever you're waiting for permission from actually knows any more than you do? They probably don't. And how do you know, are they, even if you've got some big muckety muck expert, right? You're waiting to, they probably are too busy to think about your project. And you are your own expert on what you have to say, who it's for. I just did this 12 Summit series that I just did. I have a LinkedIn group, almost 60,000 members right now. And yeah, and I'm trying to get their attention. And I did a poll, and it's mostly authors who want help. And then secondly, there's a bunch of experts that want to help them. But I'm trying to get them to talk to each other. So I thought, well, let me put together a summit series. And I thought, well, what do I think is the list of steps that I think an author would take? First one is starting with support. A lot of people think they can't write because they sit down and nothing comes. Well, maybe it's the support system they have or don't have around them, and it could be all kinds of things. It maybe isn't them at all. And so I start there, and there's 12 topics I came up with. The last one is repurposing. Once you've got your book, how many things can you do with it? Totally. And so I went through these 12 summit series, and the person who wrote the summit software said, and I quote, "When I wrote the summit software to make it easier for people to do summits, I never thought somebody would do 12 first go." And I had other people say, you can't do that. That won't work, etc. And I did it all myself. Did I juggle everything perfectly? No. But did it
Right.
work? Yeah. People loved it. And I've got like 83 recordings now of wonderful speakers on different topics in my summit series. And I've just had so much fun.
Uh, Marilyn, you are speaking freedom. You're not just speaking words, you are speaking freedom into the listening that's here, that's going to listen to this live. There's a gentleman named Francisco Fierro that just put in comment how awesome this is for him, about how he's self-published. Um, I want to go back to a
Before
very
before you before you do that, I just want to say one more thing. This 12 Summit series, so many different kinds of people in my life, mentors, coworkers, etc., said this won't work because, and they all have their own reasons. And I just said, you know what? I've tried it for 3 years. Actually, I studied online marketing gurus, so I did pull together a lot of what I'd learned from them. But I tried to do what they did, and it just hadn't worked for 3 years. And I finally said, well, just do what your instincts tell you, Marilyn. And I
yeah,
knew what I wanted to say. I know how I wanted to get the message across. I knew who it was for, and I knew how to do it. And that's how I did it. So it was just totally my instincts. And I just invite you to be honest with yourself about what you know, what you want to convey, how you want to convey it, who it's for, and try it. Maybe it won't work. Maybe it'll only partially work, but you'll learn something, and you'll make yourselves a step further. So thank you.
perfect. One of the notes I wrote to myself just in this last session, I put a big P and I said, have a promise, be passionate, and practice your delivery. And you just spoke to that right now. Like, you had a promise. I'm going to deliver this summit come heck or high water. And your passion for who you are, for the authors out there that one, are smart enough to follow you on the regular, two, even smarter if they reach out to you for a contribution or to work with you, and three, that you said, okay, this is my promise. Now, how are we going to practice it, community? How are we going to take what we've learned here over this 12 Summit series and start to implement that? So I know maybe I'm speaking ahead, that you are starting to create the structures that give people the opportunity to take those items and put them into practice. Is that part of the
That's
next step?
yeah, mastermind actually. Yep. And group coaching. So both. Yep.
Well, now you've put your toes into my water twice, and I always like to keep the red carpet and the spotlight on my guests. You've talked about group coaching, and you've talked about creating the repurposing of something. And that was one of the biggest things that I felt as a reader often frustrated by, because my personality type doesn't mean it's who I always am, but in Myers-Briggs terms, I'm an ENFP. I'm the guy that says, let's have a party. And someone says, where? And I'm like, I'm not sure yet. What time is it? Oh, 7-ish.
Right.
Who's coming? I haven't made the list, but I'm going to have a party. It's going to be great. I'm not the air traffic controllers of the world that land things on time and off they go. So I know for me and my personality type that I need structures. And the more I read these really brilliant books by individuals who would pour their knowledge into the books, they weren't always giving the structures. They weren't giving the how to's. They were not giving the step by step actions. So that's when I said, okay, I got to create a process, a very simple
Mm-hmm.
three-phase process. Takes people 90 days. What's the system? What's the process? So as you talk about um, having a signature program, out of the 12 Summit series, what would you say is the leading thing that nonfiction authors or authors need to start off with? The way I wrote it down is, you know, in your experience, what are the top 5 that you're like, look, if you're gonna be part of my program, you are not getting away from me unless I know you have these 5 things in place, or maybe it's a little bit more or less. What would you say those are, Marilyn?
Well, I'll preface this by saying that it's not all about me. And I've gathered, I mean, I could have created a course and gone through my 12 topics and just taught everything I wanted to know, but I don't know everything. And so I have my perspective. I'm a great coach. I know something about all the topics, but I brought in specialists, and you're a specialist. And so um, I would defer to your programs as well as to mine. So we'll have to talk. But um, so, yeah, I mean, number one is to get to know yourself and to be honest about who you are. And are you writing the book for somebody else's reasons? Because you think you should, because a guru told you. I mean, look how studying the gurus and trying to emulate them worked for me for 3 years. I just paid out money. I didn't make any money. I got a lot of ideas, which I've implemented now this year. But know yourself, be honest about that, and then think about, if I'm going to spend all of, well, number one, if you're writing a book, you're probably not trying to get a job. I mean, you could, it makes you stand out more, but it's more likely you want to be an entrepreneur and be off on your own and make a name for yourself and introduce what you are, who you are, what you do to the world. So if that's the case, then spend some time thinking about, really, if I've been a CPA and I'm leaving corporate to be on my own, how much do I really like being a CPA? Because if you have a job, you can always quit that job. But if you're developing your own business, it takes a couple years to kind of really get it moving. And you know, you're going to quit after you've put in all that time. Build something that you really care about, that you'll really enjoy. Like, I totally enjoy creating that summit series. I totally enjoy highlighting other people. And that's my niche. That's my gift, is to support others, to understand them, to see where their opportunities are and to help them get there. So if you're honest with yourself about who you are, then you can figure out what your path is, and then think about who you like to work with. You know, do you really like working with people in this capacity or this level of society or whatever? And then think about, then what role you would like to be in. Do you want to be a waiter for them, or do you want to be the guru? Do you want to be a coworker? Do you want to do projects? What do you want? Where do you want to be? And then you can think about, all right, now I'll create my process for whatever it is that I want to do to be in front of these people, and then you can write your book.
That's fantastic, Marilyn. Thank you for laying out those steps. As you were speaking right now, you spoke perfectly. Who do you want to work with? What's the message that you want to convey? And the one thing that I would also ask is, what is the future that our book creates? Because oftentimes we write things based on our history. We write things based on who we are and what we've learned and what we know. And I invite people to say, your book now causes a new future for people. So, how have you seen when a book is well placed, or someone really gets behind it, a new future has opened up for them? Let's talk about how books create future for people, for the author.
Well, I'll start with something a little bit behind that scene is that um, I don't know if you know Nathaniel Branden, self-esteem, right, guru. And I grew up
Yes.
reading his books about self-esteem and went, wow, what a concept. I
Wow.
need this, right? Yeah. And then when I met Marshall, he knew Nathaniel, and Nathaniel was, I started a thought leader group for Marshall at a local university. And Nathaniel was one of the thought leaders that we brought in. And so I got to know him. And after I wrote my book, like the week before I was going to publish it, I was sitting with Nathaniel and his wife in his home in LA. And I had my notebook, my 3-ring binder of my book, and he was sitting there with his wife going through it, making comments. Oh my gosh. And he told me something that I had never thought of. He said one of the books he had written, he wrote it in order to explore the topic. He didn't, I mean, I always thought you write a book because you know the topic and then you write about it. No, he was exploring. And so he didn't know what the future of that book would be
Wow.
because he was exploring. And so I think a lot of times, and I'm actually working with a client now who she came to me. People refer people to me because they know I help people write and self-publish books. So she was referred to me by a friend, and she had this book in mind. She was leaving corporate and she wanted to write a book for the people she wanted to coach that were related to her corporate job. And we started with that. And then she said, there's actually another phase of that I'm more interested in. And then so we worked on that. We didn't get rid of her other book. We put it on the shelf. I said, well, wherever your energy is, let's go there. You don't have to force yourself to finish the old book. We'll get back to it, right? So then as she was writing this new book that would have more life in it, basically, then she got into more of a creative side of herself.
Yes.
And so this is 3 phases. And so her future, she was evolving as she was writing. It's like she was dumping all this wisdom, great wisdom she had from her corporate world. And as she did that, she was able to see this newer life, more life side of herself. And then from that came a more creative side of herself. So um, that's just in the writing part. Now, when you get out there as a thought leader, my contention as a thought leader is that, because I've watched Marshall, is that he has his ideas, and basically he's had the same message for the whole time I've known him, messages I'll say. But he before every talk that he does, because I've been to several of his speeches, he'll walk around the audience beforehand and he'll talk to people and he'll ask them questions. And he works with clients all over the world. He works with companies all over the world, and he asks them questions. And so it's not like he's the answer. He's got all the expert answers, and that's the end of it. Nope. He's always evolving. He's always learning from the people who see him as a thought leader. And so that's what I see from your book. It's a good platform for you to sort of explain yourself to people and introduce yourself, but you're listening to them. And then that becomes your next book. So every couple of years, you probably are putting out another book. And so this is fodder for your next book.
Oh, Marilyn, I know I haven't asked you yet. And today, one of the comments that Brendan made was, be bold and make requests. So I do have my advanced reader copy for Living Your Life's Work out. I am asking for edits, endorsements, elevations of my book. And, I've been I've been a little chicken to say, hey, Marilyn, would you be open to reading a chapter or two of my book and see how it inspires, or how it, what it can do. So I thank you for what you just said, because I'm going to come back to my question, you can answer it later, but talking about that journey where you said he was exploring a topic, when we distill that down, someone who's courageous enough to put out a book about speculation, about exploration, about their learning journey, is pushing back in the face of it needs to be perfect. I need to be seen as an expert, or people are going to dismiss me. It is so pervasive that we are afraid that if we do not put out the most, what we believe is perfect, uh, that
You're
Los
fine.
Angeles,
Yeah,
Los
you're
Angeles
fine.
drivers, um, that if it isn't perfect, we can't put it out. And you really just described right now. No, put out a well written, has integrity to the process of writing a book, piece that says, this is my journey, this is what I learned. If you're going to do this as well, you might be interested in this. And I can't thank you enough for sharing that, because it's just one of those blows back against this nature that we have to be a certain way before we could bring our work to the world.
Well, and it's interesting to say that because Nathaniel Branden started out with Ayn Rand, who was a bit stern, I would say, to be gentle. And so I met him, and he was in his 80s, so he was her boy toy back in the day. He was in his 80s now, a few marriages later, and what he said to me is that he developed. I mean, compassion was not part of Ayn Rand's world, I don't think, but that was something he developed over time. So, I mean, everybody evolves. She was famous. She had a huge impression on the world. He started there and he developed from there. And so he had his own journey. So, no matter where you are, hopefully you're still learning.
Well, inside of the learning that you illustrated, I had a client, we did a deep dive yesterday. I always like to look at the arc of a client's journey and how far back can we go to where they could look back and see the cosmic breadcrumbs that says, no, I've been preparing you for this all along. You just didn't know this was going to be how you were going to express yourself out in the world. I think that's part of thought leadership. The ability to be articulate and to use the words of your industry does not make you a thought leader. It is being at the tip of the boundary. It is being the arrow that pushes against the paradigm. That's thought leadership. So as you're talking right now, and you're pulling for people to step forward into this conversation, how would you invite them um, to take on this? You mentioned Marshall thought leadership. You talked about the other gentleman. Uh, Gosh, I forgot his name. The one that was with
Nathaniel
Nathaniel.
Branden. Yeah.
Um, what what would you tell someone who is trying to say, I want to be a thought leader? When you hear that, in Marilyn's world, it means they're showing up and doing X, Y, and Z. What is the X, Y, and Z that in your world a thought leader needs to do as an author?
Well, and I'm careful about that term thought leader because it can just become meaningless if anybody can be a thought leader, right? So,
Absolutely correct.
and I would say that the market is maybe telling you when you're a thought leader, and you can have your ideas. I'd say focus on your authentic self, what you see in the world, and where you would like to make a difference. What's the solution you see to some problem that bugs you, and you think, why doesn't everybody know this, right? And if it really makes sense to you, check it out, try it out, see if it works, your solutions, and then hone your solutions and help people, and then describe what you've learned and your solutions, and as you do that, you're going to develop some followers, some people who are appreciating what you're contributing to the world. And if it's not all about you, I mean, some people have more ego than others, and I guess it works for them. But try to be humble enough to listen to other people and ask questions and improve. Just keep improving. And thought leadership, I mean, I think it's important to think of yourself in those terms, because that connotes a higher quality. And coaches come in all flavors. So a thought leader coach, like, am I a thought leader? I don't think of myself that way. I think of creating quality and serving people, and
Mm.
and I think about that. I tell people how to become a thought leader, how to be seen as a thought leader, how to develop credibility as a thought leader. Well, look at my stuff. Am I a thought leader? Do I do I look like that? Yeah, sometimes I do.
Yes.
But I'm not perfect, and what's perfect anyway? Who's the authority?
And
So,
who's on 100% of the time delivering their A game? Nobody is. No
yeah.
one wakes up like, oh, I'm brilliant. Well, some egos might wake up and say, oh, I'm brilliant, but the leaders don't normally wake up that way.
Well, Marshall, I just have to put in a plug for what he used to say. So, so he had his ups and downs. He'd get cold sometimes, or he'd be tired or whatever. And people would say, "How can you?" He had quite a schedule. How can you stay on top of all this? And he would get quiet and he would say, "There's no business like show business." And he says, "You're on. When you're on, you're on, and then you do your thing and be there for people the way you promised, and then take care of yourself."
To borrow what you just said right there, that we have to turn on when we turn on. When I come to an event like this, I've learned to be a little bit more bold. And on my lapel right here, I wear, let me take this off. I wear this little note
Oh, I like that. That's
because,
perfect.
right, like I'm here to be fed so that I could set myself free in the work that I do for others. And I'm here to create the connections. And one of the things you just said right now is hone what you do and help people. And leaders are listeners. They are listening to their audience. They are listening to their network. They're taking feedback and not being so up here about themselves that they can't still shape, modify, review, and refine who they are and how they're saying it so they could stay not just with the times, but ahead of the times.
Because that's your job as a thought leader, because everybody else is busy doing their work, and you have the mental space to think, okay, so what does this mean? Where are we going with this? And so yeah, that's, to me, that's your job as a thought leader.
Mm. Okay, we are in our final descent. I like to say we take people on a flight, we take them on a journey. We're now starting to bring it to a landing. You're in San Diego, I'm in Los Angeles. We have beautiful sunny skies over us today.
Yeah, we do today. It was great.
Right? Isn't it nice? I know. So, for everybody listening in a cold environment, or
I grew up in Minnesota. I know.
my wife's family's from Michigan, and they said there are snow squalls coming off the Great Lakes right now. And I thought, I don't
Oh,
want to be there for that.
I can feel it.
Um, Let me ask you this. This is knowing about Marilyn. How did being a ghost writer shape who you are for the work that you're doing for others now?
Well, ghostwriter isn't the main thing I've done. In fact, I did ghostwrite some books for some of my clients because they needed it. And so I stepped up and did the job. And I found out it just took way more energy than I wanted to give, but I like the results. We got the books done. And I like that I really listen to, I don't try to put a style on them. I bring out their style. I bring out what matters to them in their books. So that I like the results. Um, but what would I say? I focus more on, I'm an entrepreneur, and that's how I think. So when I listen to somebody and I listen to what they do, what matters to them, what they know, my mind goes to, well, what could they do with that? who would benefit from that.
Yes.
And so that's more what shapes me right now.
I see you, Marilyn McLeod. I see you. I very much see it. I can't thank you enough. Okay, so in this final stretch of a few moments here, I'm going to be posting this as a replay on LinkedIn. I'm going to have it on the Author Launchpad curated Facebook community. But where can people find you? And is there some links that you want me to post wherever I post this video so people know your services, your promise through product that you're delivering? How can they find you, and what can we do for them?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And this morning I've been, I've spent most of my career one-on-one with people. So this offering classes and masterminds and all that, I mean, I've done it, but I haven't really made it available to others. So I just made a list on my main website, coachmarilyn.com. So if you could just post coachmarilyn.com in the descriptions,
Certainly.
then they will be able to find a list. You can get a free subscription to my Celebrating Coaches magazine. You can find the LinkedIn group with 60,000 people in it almost. You can, and then the mastermind and the replays from the 12 Summit series and all those things are listed. So you can, and that I will update that page. So coachmarilyn.com, it's spelled like Marilyn Monroe. CoachMarilyn.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I spend more time on LinkedIn than I do on Facebook these days.
Okay, perfect. So you got that there. You're going to see me putting coachmarilyn.com all over the place so that we can find her. I'm going to put
Thank
on
you.
all my pages. Um, and Marilyn, what I hope I did well for you today, because like you said, you did this 12 Summit series. I listened to you in the car driving down to San Diego. I've listened to you while at a gym. I have been listening to you for this past week. I hope that I gave you the opportunity to describe your commitment for the individuals that you featured, as well as the individuals that you're going to work with in the future. And so just checking in, did I give you that space to see yourself as much as you see us in our journeys?
Oh, sure. It was fun. You asked questions that drew out of me things that I think are real practical and helpful for people and hopefully encouraging to authors. So, and I love what you're talking about too. So, like I say, I want to promote your work as well. So,
Marilyn, thank you so very much. So everybody here watching live, watching the replay, watching where, as Marilyn said, repurposed. How are you repurposing your work? Um, this is the opportunity for you to get your work out into the world. Marilyn has programs. I have a program. And I want you to hear this. We're like a relay team. Marilyn's going to take you a certain distance and then hand you off to me, and then I'm going to take you a certain distance. Whether it's that signature group coaching program, creating your master class, what does your workshop look like? Like, you've got a brilliant, years-long expertise coach in Marilyn McLeod. You've got me, curriculum course writer. That's what I do. I look for the performance in you and bring that alive. And both of us together can transform your author journey. Would you agree with that, Marilyn?
relay team. I'm going to use that. Love it.
With that being said, coming to you from San Diego, she's over that way, and Los Angeles, California. We want to thank you for your time and attention. We hope this made a difference to you. If you would like a copy of the workbook, it's also going to be in the links below. And from this conversation, I'm going to make sure I get some highlight PDFs to share so people could also jump to and listen to the most important parts. So let's wave bye to everyone, Marilyn, and wish them a great Friday.
Best wishes to all of you.
Bye, all. Thank you so
Bye.
much. And bye.